Don't care what people say. All I wanna do is live for today and get ready to be surprised. Now it's time to let it all go. Feel the love is all there is to know, and get ready to be surprised. I don't care about the past. Old memories turn to dust. Baby, get ready to be surprised. Ain't gonna stop me anymore. I'm driving on a road I've never seen before. Get ready to be surprised. To be surprised. Be surprised.
Welcome, everybody. This is Richard Sachs. I'm your host on Lost Arts Radio, and we're back with our friend Gabriel Cousens, a medical doctor who is known for demonstrating and proving all over the world that there is actually a cure for diabetes, which I looked up again recently, and they still say, no, we have no idea how to cure diabetes. You just have to take as many drugs as possible, and that's going to have the best outcome. Of course, it has all these horrible side effects, but that's the best you can do. And he's demonstrated that that's actually not exactly accurate. You can cure it in many cases completely. We'll hear more about that later on. But and he's also the author of several books, including Conscious Eating and Conscious Parenting, and the book about diabetes, There is a Cure for Diabetes, and many more.
Really, 61% in 3 weeks.
Oh, sorry, only 61%, so it's not 100.
3 weeks.
In 3 weeks, yeah. So it's not like in one day. You have to wait 3 weeks for it to be finished. But,
yeah. And then,
but
over the rest of the time, over the next year, a lot more get healed.
Okay, that's an important clarification. So not limited to 61%.
When you're really looking at the picture, type 2 diabetes takes somewhere between 12 and 19 years off your lifespan.
Yeah, something worth curing.
Yeah, exactly. And curing means no medication. This is important. No medication.
Right.
And a blood sugar of less than 100.
Okay, good. But now people have asked me when I told them about your work with that, well, it's not really cured because you can't go back on a Big Mac diet and be fine, right?
Right, and the answer to that is if you get a headache from hitting your head against the wall, and I say stop hitting your head against the wall, and magically your headache goes away, and you want to start hitting your head against the wall, guess what? The headache's going to come back.
Yeah, that proves it's not unconditionally cured. You have to not hit the wall anymore.
Yeah, and that's the point. You have to learn to live in a way that is a healthy way.
Okay, that actually makes sense. And I think it's just that we've been taught that lifestyle has nothing to do with health and disease.
And you can abuse yourself as much as possible and everything's going to be fine.
If you take the right drugs, yes.
Yeah.
And have the right organs removed when they give out.
And the problem is that's a downhill battle of 12 to 19 years old.
Yeah, it results in what's called normal old age, which is really abnormal.
Correct. Correct. So I'm actually on my 14th book, which is coming out hopefully soon, which is Into the Nothing. And it's all I ever learned in life was from playing football and meditating.
Wow. So I have one question about the book. I know what your schedule is like a little bit. How in the world does a person get time to write a book unless they're sitting around with lots of free time? How does that work? I know a lot of people solve it by using ghostwriters, and they put 2 names on it. So if you don't want to do that, how do you get it done?
It's a work of art, and I put my free time into doing that.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to take time off from your regular job, and that's what you have to do.
So how long does it take with that system to do your current book? How many weeks or months or?
Started a few years ago.
Started it when? Sorry, couldn't quite hear you.
A few years ago.
A few years.
Basically, and I'm on my 18th draft. It's a shorter book. It's 350 pages. Some of my books are like 700 pages.
Wow.
800.
So to keep it continuous and coherent, don't you have to do a lot of rereading of what you've already written?
Well, you're right. You have an outline. You write chapter by chapter, and you see the flow. And then you re-edit it. When I say 18 times, you're reading the book again.
Wow. So any estimate of when that might be available to buy?
I'm going to say hopefully within the year.
Okay. All right. And for all the books that are already available, what's the best way to buy them?
Well, the easiest is just go to drcousens.com and you can buy it from us.
Okay, perfect.
But you can get the books anywhere. You can get them on Amazon or wherever.
Right. But on your website is fine. Okay, so the reason we're here today, besides just getting an excuse to visit, which is great, and I appreciate it, we became aware that you were doing some research on a topic we've been talking about a lot, and recently had David Dubine on the show, who's been one of the world's prominent people researching global temperature patterns. And we've had people talking about the warming trends and the cooling trends and which is correct, and each pointing to their data saying they're the only ones right. And interesting things happening with the bureaucracy and power structure, using famous spokespeople like Greta saying, not only is it getting catastrophically warmer, but you're going to be dead in about 7 years unless you give up all of your rights to the United Nations running the countries, things like that, for your own good. And you were saying that maybe some of that had interested you in getting you into researching it yourself. Is that what happened, or did you have a different reason? Did you have some reason for looking into it?
Yeah, we live in southern Arizona. My wife, who has trouble with heat, I'm very happy at 120 degrees.
Okay.
You know, in India at 120 degrees. But my wife is getting really concerned, is this going to keep getting warmer?
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll research it up. I don't have the answer here, but I know that you have trouble with heat. And here we are in southern Arizona. If it gets too much warmer, it's going to be difficult for you. So let's research it up and see what the story is. That was my motivation. It was totally apolitical.
That's why you didn't just call Greta and ask her and do the easy way, right?
Yeah. And so basically what I discovered is that there's cycles of global warming and cooling, which have been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. And it has nothing to do with humanity. As important as we think we are, we don't really matter in this discussion. And
so that means there are more powerful influences at work, is what you're saying, right?
Well, what I'm specifically saying is the research is pointing to cycles of sunspots and the elliptical rotation around the sun and the rotation of the Earth axis. That's what I'm saying. So we can kind of look at that and,
Yeah, at some point too, please tell people what sunspots are in case they don't really know.
So they're bursts of energy from the sun. And in periods where there's more sunspots, there's more global warming.
Okay.
And like a few years ago, we hit what we call the global minimum. And now we're into global cooling. So I'm going to show a little graph from 1100 AD. Now that's really before we had the industrial age, right?
Yeah.
And what you can see is back to 1200. You see that big spike?
Yeah, a little bit to your right, just slightly. Okay. Right, that's great.
So that's a warming cycle, 1200 AD. There wasn't a whole lot of industry going on, right? But then what happens? It goes down. Then what happens? It goes up. And then what happens? It goes down. Now this is just 1100 AD.
And how far up did it go on that big spike in the beginning there?
Well, it went up 3 degrees centigrade.
Which is supposed to be catastrophic from what I've heard lately.
Well, we seem to have survived, okay?
Yeah.
The real issue is what we're going into now. See, if you go to this end here, the other end of the story, is the global cooling, okay? And when you have global cooling, you have famine, you have disease, and you can't produce food.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we're going to make some simple recommendations of how do we protect ourselves. But first, we got to be smarter than Napoleon. Did I lose you?
Smarter than who?
Napoleon.
Okay, and how smart was he, and what does this have to do with anything?
Okay, so we had the French Revolution, 1789. People were hot and bothered, and there was a revolution, and it was actually a time of global warming.
Okay.
In 1812 into 1815, we were in global cooling. So he chose to invade Russia in a time of global cooling. And they got frozen out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
1815 was when there was no summer in the United States. No summer.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't get the cycles right, and you try to invade a place like Russia, you're going to freeze.
So you plan invasions when it's going to be more comfortable weather for everybody.
That's right.
Okay, I got it.
But what I'm saying is cycles of warming and cooling. He hit a cycle of cooling. The revolution, which people in the heat get more agitated, was a time of global warming. That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
So these cycles exist, and what you saw with the graph is ups and downs, ups and downs. This is not new, and it has very little to do with humanity. So here is one other chart. I'm not going to give you a lot of charts, but this is, again, I'm going to call it temperature fluctuations over the last 500,000 years. So there weren't human beings around. But you can see they're very significant fluctuations. Warming, cooling. So the point I'm making right off the bat is that we have cycles of warming and cooling, at least traced back 500,000 years.
Okay.
So this is not exactly a new idea. Now, I'm trying to stay away from the politics because obviously people want to use these cycles as if nobody can read history and, excuse me for a second, and take advantage of as if global warming is a straight line. It's just going to get hotter. Rather than looking at actual temperatures of cycles of warming and cooling. Once you get that, everything starts to make a lot more sense.
Well, then you want to start finding out what is making it get warmer and colder, right? In all those cycles.
And that's the sunspots. When you have more sunspots or you have less sunspots. Okay, so that's the point I'm making. It's primarily sunset oriented. So there's first concept, warming and cooling is cyclic, not linear.
Let me ask you one question about the cause of, being sunspots. You know that there's a difference, obviously, and this is misused a lot of times, but it's true that correlation and causation aren't the same thing. So is this a correlation, or is there reason to believe it's a primary cause?
There's good reason to believe it's a primary cause, because you take a 500,000 year look, relate it to however they were measuring sunspots, and when you hit a sunspot minimum, you also get global cooling. When you get it, so for 500,000 years, this is not a one-time pattern. It is directly related to number of sunspots.
Okay.
And we'll get a little bit closer, but the point I'm making is it's not related to the industrial age. It's not related to carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide, in the quote, global warming gases, carbon dioxide is 0.04% of global warming gases. But man-made carbon dioxide is 3.5% of the 0.04% of the global warming gases.
Wow, I never heard that looked at before.
It's not a lot, right? It's minimal.
Yeah.
Now, as a vegan, I'm aware that animal agriculture creates somewhere, depending on the research, between 21% and 50% of the global warming gases.
Of the man-made ones, or all of them?
Of global warming gases, period.
Okay.
But here's the point, is global warming gases are only 0.04% of the whole story.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
very,
It's
very,
always assumed that all the global warming gases are caused by humans. That's kind of an unsaid assumption.
right, and it's completely inaccurate.
Okay.
And I'll show a graph a little bit later because it's nonsense. And guess what? Carbon dioxide is the God molecule. Why? Well, I'm a biochemist. What does carbon dioxide do? The plants eat the carbon dioxide, create photosynthesis, and make carbon compounds for which we need for life. In areas, and this is true, where it's more warming and there's a little bit more carbon dioxide, you're going to have more greenery.
Well, also greenhouses import carbon dioxide gas sometimes.
That's my point. So we need that for life. Carbon dioxide is not a poison, not a toxin. There's not a lot of it, but we need that to sustain ourselves.
Okay.
And so we don't want to go against carbon dioxide. It's very minimal, but again, we need it for photosynthesis. We need it for the plants to make carbon compounds so we may live.
You know, it'd also be interesting, based on what you said about animal agriculture, not being at any kind of dangerous threat to the world, but it's noticeable for producing carbon dioxide. And what about when there was a gigantic animal agriculture project in America before it was settled, and it was called bison, and there were a whole bunch of them. And can you correlate that with any kind of carbon dioxide levels?
What I'm saying is it's 0.04%. It's nothing. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Global gases, in the gas picture, are less 0.001% of the gases. You have oxygen, you have nitrogen. So global warming gases are 0.001% of the total gases here on the planet. So it's irrelevant. It always has been irrelevant, and it will continue to be irrelevant. My only concern is if we cut down on the carbon dioxide, we're going to kill the planet. Which is what
the plants are kind of vital for everything else, right?
Right. So again, I'm trying to stay away from politics, but with a little bit of brain power, we can say, oh my God, we don't want to protect against the sunlight and protect against carbon dioxide because that's going to diminish life on the planet. Okay. So the other thing that's interesting to me is we have 50 years of climate alarmist predictions, and they're all for 41.
Okay.
So in the 70s, they said we're going into an ice age.
I remember. Yeah.
Right. Guess what? We didn't go into an ice age. Right?
Right.
In 69, Paul Ehrlich from Stanford said, everyone will disappear in a cloud of blue steam by 1989. Didn't happen. In 1970, they predicted an ice age by the year 2000. Didn't happen. Scientific consensus, planet cooling, famines imminent, 1976. So I'm not going to give you 41 different things, okay? I just want to highlight the point that there's something else going on that make people do this, extreme anxiety. So 1978, no end in sight for 30-year cooling trend. I didn't say warming, I said cooling.
Right.
1988, the Maldive Islands will be underwater by 2018. Oh, has that happened?
I haven't
No.
been there, but I don't think so. No.
It hasn't happened. 1989, rising sea levels will obliterate nations if nothing's done by the year 2000. It's a panic thinking. 1989, New York City's West Side Highway will be underwater by 2019. That definitely has not happened. Remember, we're 0 for 41 here.
Right.
I'm just picking a few of them. By year 2000, children won't know what snow is.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so what I'm saying is people have been doing this for a long time. I like to say, oh, it's just a current thing by the globalists. There's another thing. People get into fear. It's like watching a horror show or something. People just extremize it. 2002, famine in 10 years, and we don't give up eating meat, fish, and dairy. Well, that didn't happen either. Yeah. Now, I also want to say, just to clarify, I've been a vegan since 1973. It's 47 years. I have lived off the grid for 3 years. Off the grid means no external electricity, no external water, and no plumbing. So I understand these things. I am definitely an ecologist in the clearest way because of the vegan and because of the, I said, literally living off the grid.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm against these things.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're not working for the feedlot companies, as far as we can tell.
Correctly.
Okay.
Although they're feeding us a lot of something.
Yeah, well, that's a different kind of feedlot. Right.
But the point I'm trying to make is my lifestyle supports kind of a very low energetic use on the planet.
Right.
And here in Patagonia, Arizona, our center is totally solar. Our water, our well pump, totally solar. I drive a totally electric car. So I'm into these things, but for totally different reasons. Nothing to do with global warming and cooling. That's my point.
Yeah, got it.
So it's not like I'm against these things and I'm trying to defend a diet or a high energy consumption way of life. That's not what's going on. I'm just, my background is as a biochemist, as a researcher, and as a clinical researcher, and as a full-on environmentalist. I mean, how many people have lived off the grid for 3 years? How many people do you know? And you know a lot of people like that. How many people totally off the grid?
Practically nobody. A lot of them talk about it, but it's rare that people are doing it.
Yeah. So I was doing that in 1976. So I'm coming from a very clean place with that. And I hold that environmental standard anyway. So my talk here isn't about that because warming and cooling has nothing really, really, really to do with, I think, healthy environmental practices.
So you're saying to be a real environmentalist, you don't have to be in a panic about climate change at the moment or global warming.
Right, but it's good to be an environmentalist who lives literally off the grid with minimal energy use. As I say, I have an electric car, I'm off the grid, my office, home base is totally solar, our water is totally solar, and it's like, I've been doing this since 1976.
So how do you recharge your electric car without going on the grid for that?
Yeah, so it's a tricky question. It's called solar panels.
Yeah, okay.
If it's just without the solar panels, you still are drawing on electricity. But solar panels, I mean, our spread is 2 acres and half of it is solar panels.
Okay. And it's strong enough to recharge a car?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Okay. Britain will be Siberia by 2024. Well, I'm not pro-Britain, but they certainly aren't Siberia. Okay? Climate genius Al Gore predicts ice-free Arctic by 2013. I don't think so. What we know is the ice, and you're going to see pictures of that, the ice is actually increasing at this point.
How come they always show pictures of the ice just totally collapsing and falling into the ocean? And I've seen a lot of those.
False snapshot. I will show you global pictures of 2012, 2013. You can clearly see an increase.
Okay.
Prince Charles, another climate genius, says we have 96 months to save the world from 2009. So that's 8 years.
8 years, right.
So he's wrong. UK Prime Minister in 2009, 50 days to save the planet from catastrophe. Why are people creating fear-based things? Well, one thing is when people are in fear, you can control them.
Yeah.
You can do what you want, thinking you're going to be safe. So, 2009, this climate genius Al Gore, what was his prediction from 2013 of an ice free Arctic to 2014? Well, he's wrong. Doesn't matter if he adjusted it. And 2014, 500 days before climate change, that's like 2 years. That's 2016. 1970, the world will use up its natural resources. Not real. All oil gone in 10 years, 1966. Well, that's not real.
That was Michael Rupert, right? The Peak Oil book said that, I think.
So oil depleted in 20 years, 1972. None of it. Manhattan underwater, prediction in 2005 by 2015. Didn't happen. What am I trying to say is that people are making these extreme statements. It puts people in fear, and it puts kids in fear. You know, I have several grandchildren. I have to explain to them, don't worry about this. You aren't causing it, and you aren't allowed to cure it, but I think it's going to be as ecological as possible, and as ecologically as possible. Yeah, I will definitely tell you that. It's about 10, roughly speaking, 12 times more energy that we use when we're doing the animal agriculture, about 12 times. So as a vegan, as a live food vegan, it's like, okay, I'm using, let's put it this way. If you go vegan, we have enough food to feed the world 7 times over. If you go live food vegan, enough food to feed the world 12 times over. Food is not a problem there, okay, unless you try to put a blanket over the planet so it won't get cool, which is ridiculous. So in 1969, the Homo alarmists, that's what I got to call it,
okay,
attacked baby boomers to warn them because of pollution, the world will end in 10 years. Well, that would mean 1979. Well, no, didn't do it. So 11,000 scientists, and this is a key, and it gets a little bit into politics, say globalists should eliminate billions of humans from the planet. Now, I don't know about that 11,000 number, but that points to one of the agendas. In order to slow down global warming, we have to kill lots of people.
Yeah, well, one of the signatories to that, I'm not sure about credentials, turned out to be Mickey Mouse. So I'm not sure how many of those are legitimate.
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, they're using this kind of scientist. But like Greta Globalist put it very clearly, listen to the scientists. So you're listening to real science here, not fear-based, anxiety-based, made-up things. So in 1989, again, hordes of the Homo alarmist extremists, because that's what we're talking about.
Right, new species.
Switched their attack against the unsuspecting baby boomers, which I'm too old to be a baby boomer, to warn and terrify them that it was no longer a new ice age that would kill them, but global warming.
When did that change?
1989.
Okay.
So before that, we're worried about global cooling. So you got to understand, we have a cycle, warming, cooling, warming, cooling. So depending where you are in the cycle, you can predict disaster if you see it as linear rather than cyclic.
Because it would never reverse, right? It would just keep going the way it's going. Yeah.
So it's an ahistorical approach. You know, I showed you the graph of 500,000 years ago that the cycles have been going on. And there weren't a lot of humans around at that point.
Yeah.
So the world's not about to end in 10 years. So in 2006, they warned that because of global warming, the world would end in 10 years. Well, it didn't end in 10 years. This is 2020, and that was 2016. So all these fears. Now, somebody began to figure this out because, okay, I'm still thinking, honestly, I don't care about the politics. What's my wife going to say? Okay.
Is she going to want to live where you live anymore, or is it going to be too hot?
And that's really my concern.
Yeah.
So I'm looking like, okay, if it's global warming, cooling related to sunspots, well, who knows about that? So former NASA scientist John Casey, you may or may not have heard of him, he's retired, developed the RC theory, which is called relational cycle. Now understand, theory has to be validated by practice. So I just did 0 for 41 on the linear global warming theory. 0 for 41.
Right.
That's not good data. So he looked at historical data cycles rather than a linear man-made global warming computer system, and he really began to lay out a theory based on real science. Okay, and his theory suggested global warming and cooling is related to several things, and I mentioned them already. Number of sunspots. There's more sunspots in global warming, less sunspots in global cooling. And that's backed by the research. 2, rotation of the Earth's axis. And 3, the ellipse around the sun. Ellipse, not a circle. Close to the sun, it's going to be a little bit warmer. So he basically postulated, like a good scientist, that climatic and geological changes on Earth are the result of solar changes in sunspots. That's basically the bottom line of that discussion.
That middle part that you mentioned about the closer or farther from the sun on the orbit of the Earth around the sun, is he saying that the orbit changes, or it depends where you are on that stable orbit that affects temperature?
It's not a circular orbit, it's an elliptical orbit.
Yeah, but the whole orbit gets traversed once every year.
Yeah, I'm not sure because the big thing is about sunspots.
Okay.
But I think it has to do with how long you are in the elliptical orbit. It's a little bit more subtle, even for me. I couldn't quite.
But it's not very big compared to sunspots, is what you're saying.
Sunspots is a big player.
Okay.
So the RC theory is about 90% accurate versus 0 accuracy for man-made global warming. 0.
Yeah.
AGW. Okay, anthropogenic global warming. AGW. Okay. That's 0. 0 for 41. Okay, that's based on greenhouse emissions. It's just not true. So, the cycle of global warming ended in 1998. We were in a global warming cycle, absolutely. In 1998, we started going to global cooling cycle.
Is it a small spike on your graph or one of the big ones?
It's smaller. And it's related to sunspot activities. Okay. So global warming ended in 1998. Doesn't mean it was still kind of happening, but it was the conditions for it. Sunspots began to decrease.
I see. Okay. There could be a lag between the decrease and the real cooling.
It is a lag.
Okay.
The sun, and they use the word hibernates every 206 years. What does that mean? Marked by reduced number of sunspots and solar energy output. So the sun's doing its thing, it's having a big effect on us, and that's the key concept. Okay? So he predicted a global cooling. I'm just hoping it's just a mini ice age, and that should last to 2053. Starting in 2019, which is next year.
Okay.
And then warming beginning in 2053.
33 years from now.
That's right.
So is there a way, if that's the timing, how do you tell how cold it's going to get?
That's the part that's not clear. I'm saying I hope it's just a mini ice age, which we've gone through before. In 1815, there was no summer. People migrated down from the north into middle America, into, places like Arizona.
What about that picture of George Washington crossing the Potomac River with pieces of ice in the river?
Yeah, well, 1776.
Yeah, somewhere around then.
And we had the French Revolution in 1789. So he was probably at the edge of the global cooling before it started to go into global warming.
Okay.
And then Napoleon caught it at the other end of it, got wiped out. He got cooled out.
Yeah.
Okay. So Casey wasn't the first. More and more astrophysicists, geophysicists, paleoclimatologists have studied the role of the sun in climate change. Now, there's big interest in it. And the issue comes down to sunspots again and distance from the sun, Earth from the sun. And I'm not as clear about the elliptical thing, because as you say, we go around once a year.
Yeah.
So what's the story? But the sunspots. So what the scientists have pretty much agreed on is sunspots, rather than increasing or decreasing, correlate to periods of global warming and global cooling. You breathe in, you breathe out. It's like, this is the way nature is.
So when I was asking about the big peak or the small peak, because you've only got a few big peaks on that 500 million year graph, does that mean we're on one of the small cyclical changes?
I'm hoping that's the case, yes.
It kind of looks like it, yeah. Okay.
But I don't know, and I don't think they can predict that, okay?
Okay. Well, how far up the global warming got, if that's in degrees?
Big piece was degrees centigrade.
Right, but those big peaks were about the same height, right? And those were, you said, 3 degrees, right?
Centigrade.
The big ones, centigrade. Less than that in Fahrenheit. And the little ones...
More than that in Fahrenheit. More like 10 degrees.
More. And the little ones were not much, because they were a lot smaller than the big peaks. And if you look at how far up we are now in degrees centigrade, if it's turning around, that would indicate that it's a smaller peak, right?
Right. And so they actually have terms, they call it the Dalton minimum, okay, which is the lowest amount of sunspots. It's the place where you have the extreme global cooling temperatures, such as occurred around 1815.
Okay.
Dalton minimum. So the scientists have already labeled these things. This is, again, not new information. We seem to not have trouble reading this, but it's what it is.
Okay.
Members of the Academy and scientists have stated as early as 2007 that we're entering a new little ice age. So I'm kind of pointing out that there's a lot of scientists who know we're going into global cooling. So in 2017, 58 scientific papers came out with over 80 graphs supporting the idea that we've really entered a global cooling cycle. So we're to listen to the scientists. Okay, these are peer-reviewed journals. Nothing with the global cooling of the Al Gore thing has been peer-reviewed.
Did any of those guys have an idea of how cold it's going to get?
No, I can't answer the question. I know that's a big issue, right? It's a huge issue.
Well, I think it's going to come up, yeah. I mean, your wife might not like superheat, but she's not going to like, 20 below zero or something probably either.
I'm projecting it'll be around 10 degrees.
Okay.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Everything I've read. So, you want to look at greenhouses that can hold 10 degrees.
Right.
So, in 2017, these 58 papers were scientists from Russia and China and US and Italy, and they're looking at climate change from their regions. So this isn't just happening in the United States, it's global.
Okay.
Obviously, it completely dismantles Gore's, our humans are causing it theory. So there is a growing number of scientists who don't support Al Gore's AGW theory. And there was this year, a global warming petition that has 487 signatories of scientists, American scientists.
For warming.
Who agree that no evidence shows human beings are heating our planet. No, forget the warming. They're saying there's no evidence that humans are a cause of any warming.
I see. Okay.
That impacts global temperatures. So we have two statements. One is global cooling happened. We'll get to that. But they're really saying humans just aren't that important. As much as we think we're so important, we're not that important in terms of global warming and cooling. So we're going on for 500,000 years. We don't even know how long humans have been here. But I know we didn't have industry 500,000 years ago.
Yeah. It wasn't overuse of air conditioner at that point.
That's right. So
okay.
That's 31,500 roughly. Scientists saying there's no evidence for what they're doing. And then even the UN's Intergovernmental Panel, and they have a vested interest in this global warming thing, predicts sea level rise of 17 inches by the year 2100.
2000 and what?
100.
Okay.
So it's 17 inches, not a lot. And NASA sea level observations in the past 24 years have shown that sea levels have risen about 0.134 inches per year. That's hardly anything. It's more than a tenth of an inch.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. Okay.
So we've completely, New York's going to be underwater, all this stuff, melt up. Just not what's happening.
Well, and Obama just bought a huge estate right on the beach in near Martha's Vineyard or somewhere like that.
So did Gore.
Gore did too. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they don't believe it, but they want to scare people.
Yeah.
Gore told a German audience in 2008 that the entire North Pole cap will disappear in 5 years. 2013, let's see. It's still there, and sometimes the reported Arctic ice is getting larger. Remember, everything's slow because it's melting, and it takes a few years to start cooling again. So here, a little bit of Gore's field predictions. Rising sea levels. As you mentioned, even he and Obama are buying oceanfront properties. Increased tornadoes, which really aren't related anyway, have been declining for decades. New ice age in Europe, they've been spared, never happened. South Sahara drying up, not true. Massive flooding in China, India, and it didn't happen. So these are some of his predictions based on it. Melting Arctic, that's wrong. And in 2015, we had the largest refreezing in years. Okay. Polar bear extinction.
Yeah, this isn't, remember that.
The actual number of polar bears has increased. So it's increased, I think when he made it was 2005. At this point, we have 20,000 polar bears. Now, there was somebody that got a little hurt by this. There was a scientist in Canada, and she actually documented the increase in polar bears. And she got her claim was I got fired for documenting polar bear numbers are increasing.
Right. But they didn't kill her, right? She's still alive and everything.
She lost her job.
Yeah.
So, okay. Temperature increases due to the CO2 show no significant rising over 18 years. So nothing really big has happened. F3 hurricanes have decreased. Earth would be a planetary emergency within a decade if we haven't decreased greenhouse gases. Not happening. So basically, scientists are a little embarrassed, some of them, And there's a study in the Journal of Nature Geoscience. Okay, they found that climate models were faulty, and as one author put it, we haven't seen rapid acceleration of warming after 2000, like what the computer models show. It's just not happening.
Okay.
See, one of the things about a scientist, you make a theory, but then the facts either support it or don't. And there's no facts supporting this theory. And the University of Alabama Huntsville showed that the Earth's atmosphere appears to be less sensitive to changing CO2 levels. Okay, so in other words, CO2 levels aren't really causing anything. Some people feel warming and cooling actually affect CO2 levels.
Yeah.
But it's not causing. So I'll show you some graphs from 1600 to 2000. So fewer sunspots are directly associated with reduced global temperatures. Now that's kind of what we've said as a thesis. The Dalton minimum, you remember that, is time of mini ice age. In early 1800s was associated with the lowest number of sunspots. It was direct association. Global cooling from 1650 to 1700 was called the Maunder minimum, was related to number of lower number of sunspots. So you got it's related to sunspots. Less sunspots, more global cooling.
Okay.
So here's a graph, and I think the concept is just get the idea of the graph. What just happened? Sorry about that. Hold on. You see the graph. Sunspots and temperatures. Higher peaks, more sunspots, and also more temperatures. Is that pretty clear?
Yeah, that's interesting. Right.
So, do they cause each other? Well, indirectly, obviously, more sunspots, more warming. Less sunspots, more cooling. And so this graph marks it out.
Right, but those low points on the graph are not changing that much, even, over the cycle, right?
Wait. See this one, right?
Whoops. Change the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right,
down slightly and to your right.
Right here.
Yeah.
Have a huge time of no sunspots called the Maunder minimum, and it was really cool. Right here.
1650 or so.
And here's another minimum right here.
Right.
And that's the Dalton minimum.
Okay, got it.
They've identified these things, and you see the cycles. What I want people to get is, at least since the 1600s, we've been measuring these cycles and sunspots. Number of sunspots, increased number of sunspots, increased temperatures, decreased sunspots, decreased temperatures. So that's really what you got to get there.
One of the questions is when the CO2 was really high and the plant life was really luxuriant because it was being fed all that extra CO2. I know part of that time the temperatures were bigger tropical areas, right? But some of that time, was that also cool? How did those cycles go together, or is there any correlation at all?
There hasn't been as much correlation as I would like to see. So we have the last solar minimum, well, sunspots was 1793 to 1830, Napoleon's downfall. Okay, year without summer. But the question you're asking is more about cycles of the sun, and carbon dioxide seems to follow that rather than carbon. That's kind of, and it may follow by as much as 800 years. Okay.
You mean there might be that much of a lag time?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
2011, January 25th, NASA released data that confirms solar hibernation, dramatic decrease in sunspots, just as predicted by Casey. So Casey's theory becomes actually more a law, so to speak.
And 9 years later, it starts to maybe show itself as the beginning of decreasing temperatures. 2020.
But 1998 and then 2011, they're saying it's beginning. There's a drop in ocean temperatures. NASA and National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration satellite measurements made note of a drop in ocean temperatures by 2010. So the ocean's beginning to cool. Now, the Hadley Center at University of Alabama, Huntsville, and the Remote Sensing System published their measurements of a drop in Earth temperatures as early as 2008. So they're already sensing a drop. And it's not significant at this point. Okay, what's significant is they each independently show the same thing, that there's a drop in temperatures between January 2007 and mid-2008. So they're agreeing that there's a drop. That's the important thing. Okay. Their drop is about 0.588 degrees centigrade, roughly. Let's say 0.588 to 0.595 degrees centigrade. So they both agree.
That's what's happened already, that much drop already, you're saying?
It's from 2007 to 2008.
Okay.
And so what we're looking at is, 0.6 degrees centigrade, if we round it off. It's not huge.
It's a little over a degree Fahrenheit, right?
More so, yeah.
Okay.
Degree and a half Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Okay, so we're moving into solar hibernation. Okay, like what happened in 1793 to 1830. And we don't know how far it went. People obviously survived. I don't want to create a scare scene here. I don't want to do that, and I don't think we should worry. I never know what's going to happen, but I think it's unreasonable to think there could be like 10-degree drop.
Yeah, so, I mean, it would be good to put more emphasis on greenhouses, right? Those will be more needed if it gets cooler like that.
I'm going to talk about that at the end.
Okay.
I've done some research on it, and there are greenhouses out there that can handle a 10-degree drop.
And there are big commercial greenhouses that cover a big area, too.
And they have heating systems that put big pillars into the ground, so the ground keeps a pretty steady temperature.
Okay.
It's a good heating thing. It doesn't depend on gas or other things.
The ground works for heating and cooling, right? Because it brings everything toward a central temperature. It has less fluctuation.
Yes, in the sense that it's a steady temperature.
Yeah. Okay.
So, as a clinician, we've got to move from theory to practice. And we've seen this. I'm going to cite a few different newspaper articles of real life. Okay. So January 8th, 2010 in Bismarck, North Dakota, the temperature was minus 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill of minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, these are sub-zero temperatures found usually at the Arctic and Antarctic poles. So already 2010. Miami, Florida, 2010, record cold temperature of 37 degrees, breaking an 83-year record. Okay, I'm looking, what's happening? What's the pulse? That's why I'm doing this.
Okay.
So basically, the coldest since 1927. International Falls, Minnesota, a new record cold of minus 46 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold. I grew up in Chicago. That's cold.
Yeah. Okay. It's dangerous. Okay.
And it beat the old record of 41 degrees in 1954. 2011, Sweden reported its coldest weather in 100 years. So I'm trying to look at the big picture. Coldest in 100 years. Oh, okay. We haven't even, but we're just getting started. Polish weather experts have predicted that Europe and Russia will have to endure the coldest winters in 1,000 years. So when you come to those things, now remember, these are predictions. But the fact is, people are predicting cooling, not warming.
Right.
Prada, Earth on the Brink, 2009. Earth on the brink of an ice age. Arctic ice refuses to melt as ordered, 2008. Who was a little disappointed. And in 2008, the Express newspaper says global warming, quote, it's the coldest winter in decades. So people are beginning to notice there's a problem with global warming. It's not happening. That's a problem. So February 6th, 2018, heavy snowfall and widespread ice have led to another day of travel disruption. Boston tied a 100-year-old record, going to mark 7 consecutive days of temperatures that didn't top 20 degrees. So I'm just going to give you, again, what I call the clinical examination.
Okay.
So in Britain, heavy snowfall, freezing weather. Boston tied a 100-year-old record. Britain and also Boston, 100-year-old record for 7 days of cold. So these are things happening. And I think that's the important thing I want people to get. 31,000 scientists say no convincing evidence of global warming. That human release of carbon dioxide is causing global warming. So again, we check, as Greta Global said, ask the science. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at the science here. And we're looking at clinical. What's the real temperatures?
And I think one thing that's sometimes lost sight of is that science is determined by how you do the research. It's not determined by your credentials. So anybody who really wants to do it thoroughly and honestly can do real scientific work, whereas sometimes people with great credentials, they could be sloppy or, in error.
Well, it's a long story. That's why I want to stay out of the politics of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the New England Journal, they're claiming over 50% of the research has been, in a sense, altered.
Yeah.
So back to May 2019, less than a year ago. Greenland ice, these are headlines from newspapers. Greenland ice glacier growing as climate alarmists go into mass hysteria that defies real-world measurements. North Pole ice cap is increasing in size. Now, that's what's happening now. There was melting. Now it's freezing because we have cycles, right?
Right.
Narrative felt one of the largest glaciers on Earth. This is all, again, newspaper from the Daily Wire. That shrank is growing again. March 2019. Arctic melt myth. 7 years ago, Al Gore predicted Arctic would be free of ice. He's wrong. It's getting bigger. Now, how much bigger? This is a little amazing. Arctic ice caps have increased in size by 43 to 63%. That's a lot. Okay?
That's really a lot, yeah.
And I'll show you some images in a sense. So they've expanded 40 to 60%. Whoa. Polar bears number reached new heights. I mentioned that before. This is zoologist Dr. Susan Crockford. She's the one that lost her job.
Yeah, okay.
You told the truth here. And they've been increasing since 2005. And in 2018, we reached the highest amount of polar bears since they became protected. So
there's also a seasonal variation in ice on the poles, right? Because in the North Hemisphere, every summer, there's some melting, and in the winter, there's more freezing, right? In addition to the bigger cycles.
Yeah, let's look at the bigger cycles because,
okay.
We have to, because they were melting at some point.
There was a bigger melting cycle, in other words, and now it's the opposite.
So the bare facts is they've gone a number from 5,000 in the 1960s. I told you something different before. 5,000 in 1996 to about 20,000 today.
Okay.
So we have a fourfold increase since the 1960s. Now, you got to be careful of polar bears. I mean, they're very aggressive. They have actually knocked airplanes out of the air, the little single pilot things.
When they're trying to take off or something?
Yeah. Because they know humans are good for are good for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, Susan Crockford, which I want to honor, assistant professor at University of Victoria in Canada for 15 years, author of the book, The Polar Bear Catastrophe That Never Happened. Okay. Had her lecture shut down in 2017, was fired in 2019 because her work didn't fit the global warming narratives.
Right.
That's her. So people don't want to hear it, for different reasons. So May snowstorm breaks 117-year-old record in Minnesota. That's in May 2019. I mean, it occasionally snows in Chicago at that time, but this is a 117-year record. So we're talking real record-breaking things. So in Duluth, Minnesota, 2019, they had 8.3 inches. In 1902, the previous record, so what we're talking about is 115 years, was 5.5 inches. So it's worse than it was 15 years ago.
Inches of what? I missed that.
Snow.
Oh, okay.
So just kind of get the idea that we're having more snow than ever, and it's serious.
Okay.
So this is really important, and it partly answers your question. Highest CO2 levels recorded in 3 million years. That's a while ago. Still don't budge global temperatures. So that's the research that came out of NASA. Highest CO2 records in 3 million years don't budge global temperatures.
At what time frame? I mean, are they talking about now? Because I thought we were at a low point.
Yeah, but I'm saying in 3 million years.
Okay, in other words, whenever it was in 3 million years that it was the highest, they're talking about that time.
Well, 3 million years ago it was higher.
Okay.
Theoretically, we should be seeing a spike, right? But we're not.
Okay, so those real high CO2 levels were previous to 3 million years ago. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Record snowfall hits Moscow, kills one, and that's February 2019. They called it's a snow Armageddon. So again, we're talking unusual cold and snow, 2019. Okay. Cold wave spikes power demand to unprecedented levels. Where is that happening in? Korean times. It's around the world. That's why I'm picking these up.
Okay.
Bangladesh. Another spell of cold waves, likely some Sunday. So temperatures fall 6 to 7 degrees centigrade. So all over the world. Sierra snowpack is measured at 188% of average in this year's survey. Parts of northern Minnesota drop into 30 and 40 below zero. And here's Al Gore, 2007, North Pole ice cap is falling off a cliff. It could completely go on by summer as little as 7 years. That's 2007, so you're just totally wrong.
All right.
First snow in 50 years paralyzes Morocco. This is worldwide, okay? Colorado got 2 feet of snow on the first day of summer. Great way to start the summer.
All right.
City is snowiest October in 44 years as storm strengthens over northern U.S. I'm looking for the city in this, but basically northern U.S. So record snowfall hits Moscow, Baton Rouge, New Orleans shatter record low temperatures Wednesday morning, and that's 2018. So you get it, it's happening. Okay. One of the largest glaciers on Earth that shrank, because it did shrink. See, there's truth, but now it's growing again. Did you know that the greatest 2-year global cooling event just took place? What? What's that? On February 16th, 2016 to 2018, global temperatures dropped 0.56 degrees.
Okay, so when you're calling 0.56 degrees that really major cooling event, what are you referring to in reference to that when you say 10 degrees could be the drop that is coming?
I have to just predict what I've kind of seen and reading the history in the past.
Okay.
10 degrees is not unreasonable. And when I look at greenhouses, can you handle a 10-degree drop? Okay.
Is this average temperature?
Yeah.
So it means winters would be like 10 degrees, winters and summers would be 10 degrees cooler than normal.
Yes.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I don't know what a lot is because I haven't lived through it. But
yeah, okay. Right, me either. Not that I remember. So
what I will say is we can endure through it if we're prepared.
Okay.
So, in times of cooling, there's more famine, there's more disease, immune systems are down, and there's less food.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Minnesota had coldest temperature to January 2019, minus 49 degrees. 5th coldest temperature on record. That's this place, Madison, Wisconsin. Set a daily record of 23 degrees below zero. 2019, coldest morning since 1996. So it's happening again around the country. Iowa, Moline, Illinois, daily record lows of 20 degrees, minus 2 degrees, 22 degrees centigrade. So that's low. Worcester, Massachusetts, a low of 6 degrees, 2019. Muskegon, Michigan, a low of 12 degrees, minus 12 degrees on January, topping the previous record for that date of minus 5 degrees. So it's record-setting what's going on.
Right.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. Sierra Snowpack survey shows 162% of average statewide. California snowpack at 162, same thing. May snowstorm breaks a 117-year-old record in Minnesota. Chicago sees biggest snowfall this late in the season in more than 50 years. So you see it just everywhere we look, we're having unusual cold. NASA temperature study showed declining ocean temperatures, 2011. And contrary to Al Gore's claim, right, that it's melting, the Antarctica, I said Arctica before, now I'm saying Antarctica, has gained a rate of 112 billion tons every year, from 1992 to 2001. That's billions of tons.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I think we could say that. The UN's IPC accepted Antarctica's billion tons of ice as valid, so the UN has even agreed. Remember, they have a certain agenda, so the UN agreeing is like, that's a big deal. And states will continue to gain ice in the foreseeable future. So Al Gore is like 0 for 40. He's zero predictions, zero. So all his theories can't be taken seriously because he got a zero result.
Right.
Okay, Antarctica is gaining ice. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Hold on. Now, this is a picture of the ice cap in 2012 and 2013. So the ice cap here, let me see how this reflects. Okay, you can see this is 2013. 2013, and you see here.
Okay, right.
Well, 2012. There's obviously a difference. Can we see that out there in that picture?
Yeah, the shape of the white part is definitely different on the right edge of it.
Yeah, and it's much bigger.
And when you look at the details, it looks bigger.
Yeah. And so that's my point.
Okay.
Ice cap is not melting. As early as 2012, 2013, we have an increase of 40 to 60%, roughly speaking.
Okay.
So you can see that pretty clearly on the screen?
Yeah, when you start looking at where the borders are, it's clear that they're
This is an increase. This is 2013, this is 2012.
right. Yeah, it has expanded, and that's only in 1 year.
Yes. So the evidence, this is what I call clinical evidence. Clinical is what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important to get. We got to see that picture.
Okay.
So Arctic is increased, as I said, 43 to 63%. Okay. So in a journal in 2005 called the Journal of Glaciology, okay, I didn't know these things existed, reported that the Greenland ice sheet has grown between 1992 and 2002 by 11 billion tons each year.
Wow. Okay.
So, again, times of global warming, if you project a linear, it's one way. If you understand it's cyclic, it all makes sense. So these are warming, melting, and cooling, freezing make total sense when we see it's a cycle. It's been going on for at least 500,000 years is what we've been able to market.
Right.
That's a lot of time, 500,000 years. So us humans just aren't that important. Now, it's good to be environmentalists, as I've said. Try living off the grid for 3 years with a family of 4.
Yeah.
It's actually fun. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds great to me.
The reason I left is I was on a spiritual journey, and we kind of traveled to India and did different things that we had to do,
Right.
For which I'm pleased. I love living off the grid. It was really good.
Yeah.
It's a really nice way. And you have your compost toilets, one outside, one under our stairway. We had a fire stove that at a stovepipe, it went 3 levels up. So we only had one stove for the whole place.
Right.
And he was insulation, heavily insulated. And I helped build the house. It was fun. It was really.
Yeah. It sounds incredible.
And we couldn't get the alternate energies to work so well for electricity. So we got these huge deep cycle batteries, 2 6-volt deep cycle batteries. Mm-hmm. Where we were in Mendocino, and where the kids had to go to school was 12 miles away, and we had a driving route because we took people, and it would charge the battery, and we'd plug our house into the car.
Yeah.
It worked really well. It was really good system.
Okay.
Simple. I look at simple systems.
You got them to school, and you made it back.
Yeah, and the batteries charged up. So
it's very appealing. Plus, it makes it really hard for your appliances to all spy on you if they're not connected to a grid.
Right. We weren't exactly thinking about that, but yeah. So it's good. So basically, the summer ice, they measured summer ice, okay?
Yeah.
And they found in 2008 summer ice melt increased, meaning by 409 square miles. So there was an increase of 26% of the summer ice.
Where geographically is that?
Contrary to, this is polar ice caps in the Arctic.
Okay, got it.
So they're already getting bigger. That was 26%. I mentioned 43 to 63%. So these are scientific observations. I mean, take a picture, look at it. Mm-hmm. This is what I call the clinical aspect of it. And then you have this really rigged kind of statement. 97% of scientists agree. You've heard that.
Yeah,
right?
Well, that's why the science is all settled, I guess. Right.
So here's the answer to what that was about, because you got to understand how farcical it is. So it's very misleading. So this guy's writing his thesis, and he did a survey. And I won't mention his name, but he sent a survey to 10,257 international scientists, 3,146 responded. Okay, cool. And then from that, he selected 79 people for the interview. So it's already a biased thing. Not content with a distorted sample, he selected 77 from the sample and declared them experts. They weren't. They were just general scientists.
And they agreed.
77 people agreed. Of those 77 scientists, 2 were excluded from the second interview. Okay, so what we're getting at is, so 75 out of 77 scientists that are double-level pre-selected are really what that 97% is about.
I see.
Set up
Okay.
to 10,000, then you have 3,000 responded, but that's pretty misleading. So basically, in the United States, there's about 7 million scientists, according to the UN.
Okay.
Okay, so how much does 75 scientists make?
75% of how many million? 7 million?
7 million, and only 75 scientists actually agreed that there was global
Oh,
warming.
yeah, that's a pretty small percentage.
It's 0.0011.
Okay.
You
So
get
that-
the point. Okay.
Yeah, 97% could be slightly misleading in that case, right?
Majorly misleading
Yeah.
because you got 7 million scientists and you've pre-selected down from 10,000 to 3,000, and then you go to 79, and then you go to 77, and you just pick the people you agree with, and then you.
So the way to get consensus in science is to eliminate all the dissenting opinions, right? And it works really smoothly.
And that's the big deception.
Okay.
It's really, really. I don't want to blame the scientists. They didn't do this. This is somebody's college thesis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was biased in terms of global warming, and he wanted to show that was happening. So we eliminate all the dissent. So basically, instead of saying 97% agree for global warming, what you really need to say is 0.0011% feel global warming is happening due to humans.
Okay.
Very different statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
0.0011%, less than 1%, less than a 10%, less than a hundredth of 1%, feel there's global warming is caused by humans.
Yeah. It's not a very impressive headline.
Yeah, but they've misused it. So we have pre-selected scientists, and that's not a counterweight to the 31,487 scientists that say there's no evidence.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
yeah, you got to see the whole thing here. Only 27% of the public really believe in human-caused global warming, and that there's a consensus. So they're not fooling a whole lot of people.
Right.
Now, so there were scientists this year signed the global warming petition, which means no evidence, but a Heidelberg appeal was 400 scientists, which again is very different because these are actually real global scientists. So another petition, 1992, that was at 4,000 signatures, including 72 Nobel winners from 106 countries. And again, they dispute the theory of human-caused global warming. So when you really look at numbers of scientists, percentage of scientists, much greater amount of scientists dispute. Significantly. 31,000 versus 75, okay? 4,000 versus 75. So when we look at what the scientists are saying, I want to honor the scientists here because they're under pressure to give the party line, and they're choosing not to.
Right.
And just after Greta Thunberg, whatever you want to call her,
Yeah.
did this whole thing at the UN, a global network of 500 scientists and professionals in climate change and related fields sent an urgent message to the UN. The message was, there's no climate emergency. So that is a direct relationship to this appeal. So what they did say, because I think it's important to hear their opinions, is these are experts, okay? They're not just scientists up there. Climate science should be less political, while climate policy should be more scientific.
Yeah.
Nice statement. It is cruel as well as, this is still from that petition of 500, it is cruel as well as impudent to advocate the squandering of trillions of dollars on the basis of results from such immature models. They weren't talking about her, they were talking about the computer models.
Yeah, I understand.
Current climate policy pointlessly, grievously undermine the economic system, putting lives at risk in countries denying access to affordable, continuous electric power. A lot more people are going to die if you start making moves based on false data that's going to limit energy. Okay, so the 500 scientists, that's this year, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
They end with this statement: we urge you to follow a climate policy based on science, realistic economics, and genuine concern for those harmed by costly but unnecessary attempts at mitigation. So scientists should openly, this is their thing, address the uncertainties and exaggerations in their predictions of global warming, while politicians should dispassionately count the real benefits as well as the imagined cost of adapting to global warming, and the real cost as well as the imagined benefits of mitigation. So they're questioning it, but they're also questioning making huge, life-threatening decisions based on bogus data,
Right.
which is lethal. So the European Foundation, so I'm talking to scientists now, okay? 2012, the European Foundation released an insightful paper, included 100 reasons why climate change is natural, not man-made, what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Natural, not man-made. Okay? Here are some of their points. There's no real scientific proof that the current warming is caused by a rise of greenhouse gases. That's what I've been saying all along. Man-made carbon dioxide emissions throughout human history constitute less than 0.00022% of the total emitted from the Earth. In other words, the Earth's emitting carbon dioxide, and man-made is 1/10,000th the carbon dioxide. After World War II, there was a huge surge in recorded CO2 emissions, but global temperatures fell for 4 decades. CO2 is going up, temperatures are going down.
Yeah.
Throughout their history, temperatures have been warmer than now. Professor Emeritus of Geography, Philip Scott, School of Oriental and African Studies, says climate change is too complicated and multifactorial to be caused by one factor, whether it's CO2 or the clouds. Right. It's just so naive. It's inaccurate and it's naive. Okay? Right. Professor Kilmer, professor of geology and earth scientist at Adnell in Australia, idea of taking a single trace gas in the atmosphere, accusing it and finding it guilty of total responsibility for climate change is an absurdity.
Yeah, there's a huge movement now that what we have to do to survive is capture the CO2 and put it in the soil so it won't do so much damage.
So the way you capture it is grow organic.
Well, they are saying to do that. They're good organic promoters, but they're saying that if we don't catch a lot more of that CO2 and put it in the soil, it's going to kill everybody.
Yeah, so CO2 is 0.00011% of the global warming gas. It's really irrelevant except for growing plants. And if you go organic, like you go an acre of avocados will pull down 3,200 pounds, 3,300 pounds of CO2 out of the atmosphere per year.
Right, but I suspect it does it in a way that's not going to deprive the atmosphere of the necessary CO2.
No, this is normal.
Because that would be a disaster if organic farming did that, right?
No, it doesn't do that. It's just saying this is a really healthy way to go about it.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing the cycle back to normal.
Go organic. It doesn't seem to happen with commercial. Go organic. And if you just go commercial organic produce in general, I think it's like 2,700 pounds per acre per year.
Yeah.
Avocados do a lot. So CO2 today is about 385 parts per million, which is low compared to the general CO2 atmosphere for the Earth.
Yeah.
So we're living in a carbon dioxide deficient atmosphere, relatively speaking.
Right.
And again, the global warming doesn't cause storms or weather extremes. And basically, they're finding warmer periods are more beneficial than cooling, which I've been saying. And so we have to, that's not so good. We're going in. Cooling is not the better story. Okay?
Yeah.
Climate currently contributes to the global burden of disease and premature deaths. But the evidence shows that the higher temperatures and rising CO2 have helped global populations that are associated with this disease. That's what I've been saying all along. So, an analysis of the ice core for the last 650,000 years. That's a long time, okay?
Yeah.
Shows temperature increases have come before. These temperature increases have not resulted from increases in CO2. So, preceded CO2 by as much as 800 years.
Wow. That's a big time gap.
Yeah, that's right. So I mentioned 21 to 53% of global greenhouse comes from animal agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
My granddaughter says 19, but I'm not going to argue with her.
Regardless, it's not a catastrophe, basically.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
So what is the global gas composition? So I said CO2 is 0.04% of the atmosphere, but only of that 0.04%, 3.5% is man-made.
Yeah.
So 96.5% of the CO2 is just part of the whole cycle of life on the planet.
And that point, you said 0.04% of the whole atmosphere, right?
Yeah, you'll see a picture.
What is it in ancient times when it was really high, when the dinosaurs were enjoying the luxuriant plant growth and everything?
I can only say, some people say it was, I want to be careful because I don't really remember, but it could be 5 times higher.
Yeah.
Could be double. Let's say double is safer.
Okay.
So here's the chart, and the little wedge is CO2. See the wedge at the bottom?
Yeah,
white.
The white.
That's of CO2 in the atmosphere.
Okay.
Not impressive, right?
Right.
So what see, and that includes argon, neon, hydrogen, helium, and methane. So 78% is nitrogen and 21% is oxygen. And then that little bit is carbon dioxide. It's just not a big deal. But without it, we die.
Right. It's there for a reason.
Molecule because you need it for photosynthesis to make your basic sugars and your proteins and things that come out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's the summary. We actually made it to the summary.
Okay.
Now, this is really important data. Highly reliable data shows temperatures throughout the U.S. are now slightly cooler than in 2005. And that's a conservative statement. There's the U.S. Climate Reference Network and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In their research, they set up 114 centers that are away from cities, so they're not affected by cement and all that. Their untainted data, which they began in 2005, shows there is a slight decrease in temperature since 2005. Not a lot, just a slight decrease.
Right.
So that's the key. That's all we can say. We're in global cooling, but it's a little bit. So there's 114 centers measuring it since 2005. And we can say there's a slight decrease. And I mentioned maybe a half a degree centigrade. That's it.
Okay.
My concern is starting with 2019, with the RC cycle, it could go 10 degrees cooler.
Yeah. So the real bottom line, as far as whether you guys have to move to northern Minnesota, the answer is probably not. And
Right.
And you're about as far south as you can get in the southwest U.S. right now.
Right. So that's my answer to Shanti. And she's accepted that because the data is really there. And so I'm very happy not to move.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Kidding aside, we did have that conversation. I'm not joking.
No, I believe you.
Search.
But you might have to build some more greenhouses, though.
That's correct. They got to build more greenhouses, and they have to be temperature-controlled greenhouses.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, and I don't want to make a promise that grow enough food to support the whole Patagonia community. But I have to get a really good gardener who understands organic and greenhouse, but at least organic.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been working with some greenhouse people way on space. We're solar run with greenhouse. It's really easy. We have to add a few more solar panels to do this, but we can do it. We have somebody looking at what that would be. But I'm I'm happy that we can do this.
Yeah.
We can create about 4,000 square feet of greenhouse.
Wow, that sounds great.
Okay, so I'm not promising I'm going to do it. I'm just saying that's literally been in the plans for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Trying to get things going. So let's take a look at a summary. So global climate change is cyclic, not linear. That's pretty, if we don't get that right, nothing makes any sense.
Okay.
And that applies for hundreds of thousands of years. Warming, cooling. Warming, cooling. That's what it's been. And they preceded the industrial age and are not generated by human CO2.
Yeah.
That's also key to understand. They're related to sunspot activity. So the historical global climate change is about cycles of warming and cooling, but it's worse. Cooling is worse. Okay. So I'm going to have some recommendations in just a moment.
Okay.
But the point is, there are cycles. Cooling could take us into a mini ice age starting 2019, which is we're just passing, and lasting to 2053. Then we go back into warming. So again, I'm not talking disaster, but I'm talking got to pay attention to that. Cooling is more of a problem for survival of all life on the planet.
Right.
And it's been associated with crop failures, food shortage, people moving from northern climates to southern climates. And again, big migration happened in the U.S. in 2015 when they didn't have a summer. Think about it, no summer? Well, that affects your mind. Okay. In the last cycle, Canada and Northern Europe lost the ability to produce food. That is a concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they grow mostly grains up there, don't they, in Canada?
Yeah, but I guess 10-degree drop would be a problem.
Yeah.
CIA mentioned that in 1974, that of this possibility, because in the 70s they were thinking about cooling, so they were doing research about the result of global cooling.
Yeah.
So that applies now too. Scientifically, clinically, physical temperatures, polar bear counts. I call that clinical from the physician's point of view, right? It's clinical.
Yeah.
is real, and it's just beginning. You got to pay attention.
Okay.
So, how do we prepare? And we'll make it simple. Make sure you have plenty of warm clothing. You and your family have warm clothing. This is the time to buy a winter coat, even if you're living in Arizona.
Okay.
Make sure your living space has good insulation.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
We're living in a rammed earth house now. That's walls this thick, okay? And they're stuffed with dirt. So there's good insulation. That's what you got to do. You need to have double pane, which we haven't done yet.
Right.
Now, this is important. Optimize your organic food resources and connections to temperature control greenhouses. Big deal. Very important. Because not enough food, malnutrition, lowered immune system. Keep a healthy immune system. So those are 4 big points.
And there can be greenhouses that are big enough for trees as well, right?
Yeah.
Fruit and nuts and stuff like that.
The ones I'm talking about are all that way.
Oh, okay. High ceiling.
Yeah. Because they warm up. There's a whole thing about they get warmer.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are simple and very practical suggestions in the bigger picture. I think trying to live off the grid is good, but I'm biased that way. That have your food source. That's your big deal. Really supporting organic local greenhouse farming. And I am really looking for a spiritually rooted organic farmer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only 1 or 2 people to do this.
Is there any information at all about the difference in the benefit to trees and plants from sunlight that's direct versus sunlight going through glass?
It's always better direct. How much better? I don't know, because if the glass is kind of clear, you don't necessarily lose a lot.
Yeah, okay. And besides,
the answer, I'm not really an expert on that, but that's my feeling.
Okay.
Because we have a solar global in a dome greenhouse, and we definitely grow all kinds of plants and trees in it.
Right.
And it's like a jungle. Yeah,
so it's certainly doing all right with the filtered light through the greenhouse roof and everything.
But the key reality is, if you're going global cooling, which is what's already beginning to happen, as I mentioned from all the newspaper thing.
Right.
That's your best choice anyway. You got to.
That's maybe the only choice that's going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Okay.
So it's not what's optimal. Grow things outside.
Yeah.
Now wait, I just want to say something. My measurements, the amount of radiation, from chemicals and chemtrail toxins, is 1/5 inside the greenhouse.
You said 1/5? 1/5?
Yeah. So we have radiation that's going on, from Japan and so forth.
Yeah.
But also the chemicals from, chemtrails. It's 1/5
right
inside the greenhouse versus outside.
Yeah, so that's a really strong argument to use greenhouses.
Yeah. So those are some of my thoughts, and that brings me to the last slide. I'll get a kick out of this. What? Record-breaking cold, and that lady in green is called Mother Nature.
Yeah, I've heard of her. It's good, nice lady.
And then there's this other lady called little girl, teenager. I'm sorry. Saying, "How dare you?"
Yes.
So either we'll look at nature, honor Mother Nature, honor the fact that this is really what's going on with more than 30,000 scientists and so forth, or we're going to go into fear and anxiety and allow ourselves to be governed by fear. So it's a funny cartoon. Actually, somebody in Israel gave it to me. And I thought that was really says it as clearly as you can. How dare you? What do you mean? Here's the science. How dare you? Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
If you tell people go check with the scientists and then you get results you don't like, you say, how dare you?
I haven't seen that cartoon. Where did you get it?
Well, it was from a friend of mine in Israel.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
And I think that the thing is the agenda, again, if we look beyond it, where you have Obama or Gore having houses by the ocean, they not exactly believe what they've been saying.
It's not to sacrifice themselves to save the earth or anything.
Well, no, I mean, if I thought I was going to go into the ocean's rising, 20 feet, I would not buy a house by the seashore.
Right, right.
It'd be ridiculous.
Well, it'd really lower your property value for one thing.
Well, worse than that. But the point I'm saying is, we've had I give you a very scientific approach, clinical, here are the temperatures, theoretical, relation cycle to sunspots is the driving force behind global warming cooling for the last 500,000 years. Right. There's nothing new. And over 31,500 scientists saying there's no evidence of human-caused global warming, but there are cycles, and that does exist. Yeah. And that's why Casey's work is so really important.
Yeah.
And that was my clue that to figure out what's going on. Is it linear or is it cycling? As soon as you get it cycling, then you just have to prepare for each cycle.
Right.
We're going to stay here.
Okay. All right.
And my wife, Shanti, is convinced that it's reasonable to stay here in southern Arizona.
But it's not going to be so bad that you have to move to Phoenix or something. To stay warm.
It'd be really bad if I had to go to Phoenix. No.
Right.
No, not at all. I am telling you, and I don't have a lot of basis, but based on all the, look at 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
They give us a feeling. I mean, we've had about 0.59 degrees centigrade drop, really. It's not a lot. And that's what I'm saying. And it's just my feeling about it.
Do you ever look at whether it's going to have any effect on precipitation rates?
We should have more rain as well.
More rain.
Yeah, but again, it's a little speculative.
Yeah.
It is having a lot of rain. They just had a bunch of floods and people got killed because the ground can't hold the water.
Right.
Now what's happening is rivers in Jerusalem are going into the Dead Sea, which was prophesized thousands of years ago of coming age of awakening. So it's very interesting stuff happening. But I'm just doing the basics here. Protect yourself, get some clothing, get a food source that's organic that you can count on.
Right.
Check your insulation in your house because we'll get through this. There's no reason to panic about this. And I hope that this puts some people at ease looking at the data when we say check the science. The data is pretty overwhelming that we're out of global warming, number one.
Right.
And that I don't know how far the global cooling is going to go, but what I've mentioned are pretty reasonable, easy things to do.
Yeah, so it's not to panic about like what Obama told the people in Africa, which is you can't have cars or air conditioners because the planet's about to boil over.
Yeah, that's just nonsense, and it keeps people sick and wounded.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. The point is, there's real science here. And I'm talking about lots and lots of scientists, lots of reports, 30,000 Probably 32,000 scientists at this point have said this. 500 additional scientists write to the UN saying, come on, let's be responsible here. There's no crisis. So, but when there's crisis, people can be forced to do things they wouldn't normally do.
Exactly.
And I think we have to understand. There are other factors. People love crisis. So in 1970, we're going to go into an ice age. Why are they saying that? Why are they scaring people? I think people like to do that. And then there's political motivations and things like that. There are multiple levels of motivations. Yeah. And I didn't speculate too much on it because I just want to say, here's the science, here's the theory, here's the clinical evidence supports the theory, and we clearly are moving into global cooling as of 2019.
Well, and what happens when you add to that the fact that there's an estimated 23% reduction in amount of sunlight reaching the Earth because of the chemtrails.
Yeah, I mean,
that could be pretty important, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that takes us into another discussion.
Oh, I know. We're not going to cover that this time.
Yeah, global cooling here.
But if the cooling is true, you don't really want to make it more severe by cutting the sunlight off.
Worse, unless that's their agenda, yes.
Yeah, right. All right, well, incredible discussion and beautiful presentation, as always. And
any questions you have about it?
What? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions? Well, my main question, of course, is the one that we can't answer right now, which is how cold, if it's going to get cooler, if that's a part of a cycle that we're on right now, how cold, and we don't know, right? You're guessing 10 degrees, which sounds like a lot to me.
Fahrenheit.
10 degrees Fahrenheit, yeah. And when you put that on the graph with the peaks, over the last 500 million years, how does that, I saw that the bottom extremes of those up and down cycles were they were in a pretty narrow range.
3 degrees centigrade. About 10 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, so you're saying this is going to be bigger than some of the spikes downward on that graph, if it's 10 degrees. But
I'm giving the worst case.
Okay.
So we have 3 degrees warmer or cooler centigrade. And, so I said 10 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the worst. I'm hoping that's the worst case. So nothing to panic about. Just get some rules.
Yeah. And it would be good for support and get in touch with growers in good organic greenhouses situations.
That's it. You got to get your food sources because clearly, in terms of global cooling, there are food shortages.
Yeah, that's a really specific submarket because most of the country, probably the way it'll be responded to, is more GMOs and processed food, especially on the cheap end. That can be produced without real food being needed.
Well, if we're going to talk about real food, which is, obviously a topic I got some experience with, we need to understand that GMOs and all the junk food that's out there affect our brain in a negative way. Right. And when we increase our brain power, it makes us more susceptible to all kinds of negative influences on multiple levels. I'm going to be vague there, but that's what I'm talking about. Not good. We really need to go organic. And organic has considerably more nutrition and considerably more flavonoids, antioxidants. You can't compare the two. But I'm saying something different. Yes, organic food is higher quality, but I'm also saying that the GMO food and all these kinds of foods actually disorganize our brain function because they're not right and weaken our willpower and weaken our consciousness. And this is pretty well proven. And then you add 5G to it, and so we're having a multifactorial input. Right. And that's of concern because people can be overcome by a variety of negative or evil influences.
Right. And when you
out there, this is not my idea.
Right. And when you say organic, you mean truly organic. And if they dilute the standards, which they're trying hard to do right now, they've already gotten it approved to grow plants without soil with water-soluble food in the water instead of soil. They're calling that organic. And so people ideally need to find out if the food is really organic.
Yeah. So, people play games. But we need the frequency of the earth. So we're doing we're not getting the frequency of the earth, which is part of the overall food frequency.
Exactly. And they've done it so the labeling doesn't show the difference.
Right.
With crops like tomatoes.
Personal. You got to know who's growing your food. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm looking for a serious organic farmer who wants to, walk. I can't really build we can put them up in a few months. And I have everything in order and all the plans, I'm not going to do it until I get a really good organic farmer who understands the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody that's interested in that, how do they get in touch with you?
drcousens.com.
Okay. Sounds
and
great.
All my articles, people want to sign up for our mailing list, where I periodically, in fact, once a day, I'm sending out information. Go to drcousens.com, sign up so you can keep current on what's going on.
Okay.
Again, I'm putting out information every single day.
And you've got a contact form on there, I assume, right? If somebody needs to get in touch with you.
Yeah, that's the point. That's how you get on our mailing list.
Okay, perfect.
There's a lot of people on the mailing list to get the word out. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Need to know about this to protect themselves.
Right. Okay, well, a lot to digest. So, thank you. I thought that was great, and we'll stay in touch so that if questions come up from listeners in the future, maybe we can send them to you or have you back or something along that line. As things
I'm trying to generate more time to be a little bit more on your show. I've been very, very busy.
It would be nice. I haven't wanted to bother you with that, but
well, you asked how do you finish your book? I have to finish my book before I take anything else.
I was afraid that was the answer. Yeah, no magic key to it or special herb you take that makes you write 10 times as fast or anything like that. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and you're about to go on another trip, I think, right?
In a few weeks, I'm going to Brazil for a 21-day program. I'm kind of doing a few different things because I'm partly in Israel, partly then from Israel I go down to Africa and Europe.
Yeah.
And we're doing our fasting retreats there. Like we get all of Europe. We had people from 14 different nations come here fasting retreat in Israel.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to access from all over the place.
Yeah, it's good.
Doing a fasting retreat and 0 point, kind of a diabetes program in Sao Paulo, about 2 hours outside of Sao Paulo in about 2 weeks. And I really love Brazil. I love the Brazilians. They are really conscious groups of people. I love their... but there's a limited amount of time I can keep going for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah. I hope Brazil can get cured from the GMO issue, and get that out of the country. Because I know that's a big South American thing that's going on.
It's a big thing. Again, the people I know don't do GMO.
No, of course, but I'm talking about the country as a whole.
I know, I understand. Brazil's done some brilliant things. How about, this is just an example of the kind of in Brazil. So in 1997, they did a study with about 8,000 people, and they gave half of them homeopathic vaccinations, meaning energetic, and then compared it to...
Orally, right? Orally.
Yeah, drops.
Yeah.
Energy drops. Homeopathic medicines. And for me, MMR, the full range of it. I'm trying to make it brief.
Yeah.
And then they half of the regular ones. And what we saw is the regular vaccinations gave you 10 to 30%, but the homeopathic gave you 93% protection.
Well, we know that's probably true because they're trying to outlaw homeopathy in the U.S. and Europe right now.
Percent. So what I'm saying is the homeopathic prophylaxis had 93% success rate over 5 years.
Yeah.
1,000 people compared to people in the same location getting the conventional, where they got 10 to 30%.
Wow.
That is kind of a brilliance that you see in Brazil.
I think it's great, although I do question something about the validity of that study, and that's that I don't believe conventional vaccines do that well, 10 to 30%.
Well,
I think they change the form of disease sometimes, but I don't see any evidence that they prevent it.
It's a long study, right? But basically, in my book, Conscious Parenting, I have 80 pages on it.
Yeah.
And the success rate is lower than 30%. Okay?
Yeah.
It may be more like 10%. Versus homeopathic, which is in the 90%.
Yeah.
No, you have much better results with homeopathic with no side effects.
Right. So it brings up the question of what parents do when they are told, your kids must be vaccinated or we're going to take them away. It's
a huge problem. And I kind of stay away from it a little bit because it's not like core to my overall spirit.
No, I know.
But I'm saying in my book, I lay it out, 80 pages, and the study from Brazil is like brilliant. It's like, there you are. Vera.
Right.
What we're looking at is when they start manipulating the genes of the aborted fetuses that we go into the vaccines towards turning on the cancer parts of the genes.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with language. You don't mean we, because I'm not going to do that.
No, but I'm saying the researchers.
Yeah, exactly. They're already doing it.
So it's a very difficult thing. I think we're going to see, you take Ebola now.
They approved a new vaccine, right?
Well, I don't know if they approved it or not, but what I do know is there's 15 times more virus spread from the live vaccine to your breath and your bowel and your feces and coughing and sneezing. So you have the spreading of the live disease, and I talk about my book, but the newest research says 15-fold increase in spreading the live virus when you've been vaccinated. That's pretty intense. So I expect at some point people are going to wake up and say, this is an attack on us.
Yeah, you can see it coming because the FDA did just approve it. A live virus Ebola vaccine. And they are bringing people in across the southern border from Africa, from Central Africa. One just died in the hospital of Ebola. And you can see how they're putting it together.
We're talking about the Congo, right?
Yeah.
And so why are you doing that when you know that's super dangerous?
Because it's going to be a great reason to mandate the Ebola vaccine.
Oh, I understand that. But the mandate is a little bit more than that. Think about it.
Yeah, of course.
First, Ebola infection into the country, then you use a vaccine that's going to spread it 15 times more.
Right. But it's okay because it is approved. So it's,
you're cynical, but the point is, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
I think people are going to start to respond and say, oh my God, I'm not willing to play because you're risking my life and my kid's life with Ebola, which is treatable. My friends, holistic physicians who are treating it, just, it's treatable with oxygen therapy, IV hydroxychloroquine.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It's treatable because that's antiviral. But the point is, the bigger point is that, why are we under biological attack? So I'm concerned, and I think, and I hope the parents wake up. Again, it's not a battle I'm spending a lot of time with. There's just so many things you can battle with.
Well, and if you don't have IV hydrogen peroxide available, juice fasting is antiviral as well, right?
Yeah, but we're talking a serious life.
Like immediate, right? Real fast.
Yeah. And my friends who went to help out we're curing it with IV ozone.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
And they were asked to leave.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if there's, we know there's a difference if your body is clean on whether viruses are going to bother you or not.
Of course.
Right.
But I'm talking
General
magnitude.
population. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking Ebola as a magnitude serious. That's life-threatening disease.
Oh, yeah. I just wonder, as a question, how many people who have gone through a detox program and gotten better nourished would actually be susceptible to it?
I would say that you're going to have less susceptibility, but you still be susceptible.
You could still get...
A holistic lifestyle doesn't make you bulletproof.
Okay.
So got to be real careful about that.
Some of the non-dangerous protocols that work quickly could really be important.
No, not could. Are important and are life-saving.
Like the one you just mentioned.
Yes, ozone, IV therapy. I don't do it myself, but I'm saying people I know, doctors who went there, they were curing like 100%.
Okay.
But that's not available to everybody.
No, it's not done in most places.
What's available is don't bring Ebola people into the country. You know that's going to cause a problem. What are you thinking?
Well, out of the 2,200 miles of southern border, they just showed that they'd finished 100 miles.
Yeah, but, it's an issue. Trump just got, what, $3 million or something to do the rest.
Yeah, not very much.
Yeah, but at least something's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
So, the point is, all this is going on, and I want, at least we should understand global warming and cooling. We shouldn't be in anxiety about it. We are not in a linear global warming. And, get some more clothing and make sure you have a good organic food source.
Yeah, exactly, which they can start working on right now.
These are simple things.
And any farmers that want to be listening, get some greenhouses going, right?
Yeah, I have found a really, really good greenhouse system out of Colorado where they, can do 25 degrees lower.
Wow. What kind of material is the glazing?
It's not actually glass. It's
is it plastic?
A super kind of, I would use the word plastic, yeah.
It's not like a plastic clear tarp, though. It's like rigid,
no.
rigid material.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Because the other stuff lasts like 1 to 3 years.
Right. And then you have all this waste that you're generating too. So if you get the rigid material and it's like a plexiglass or
it is plexiglass, yeah.
Then it's more resistant to earthquake shaking and bending and stuff like that too than glass is.
The main thing is last longer. I mean, we don't know how long things will be right here,
Right.
So you want to build it to last.
Yeah, 30 years for the cooling cycle at least, right?
My point.
Yeah.
30 years. So I'm just hoping people can be at peace with this, like my wife and
guys, exactly.
We don't panic or go into anxiety. The world isn't going to end. We're okay. Just have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And create a lifestyle that's going to support health and well-being at every level.
Yeah, exactly.
So everyone be blessed that you're at peace with this and that you choose to make those changes to help you go to a higher octave of living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, go to GabrielCousens.com or drcousens.com, right?
.com, yeah.
Is there a period after the R?
No.
Dr. Cousens, right?
Right.
Okay, sounds great. So hold on and we'll say goodbye in the break, and hopefully we'll be back to this pretty soon. That was Dr. Gabriel Cousens. He's been on the show a lot. He did a whole year of programs on health that are still available on all the public platforms that we're on, Blog Talk and quite a few video platforms, and really neat guy, because he's an example of proof that you can be a really competent scientist and medical doctor and not be a prisoner of the drug industry and fake science. And I think that is really an inspirational example for everybody, that no matter what field you're in, and people are venerating science now, as a rule, all kinds of science, but increasingly it's used as a tool of malicious industry. And I don't mean the people in the medical industry or the others are mostly malicious. They're not. But the people in control of it are, in almost every single case of every major industry, every major government agency. We're in a really interesting situation if we're brave enough to actually look at it. And Dr. Cousens is an example that you can be in one of the most compromised industries in the world right now, which is the medical industry, and the research science community as a whole, and be an example of blending ethics and honesty and benevolent intent toward humanity and life on Earth, and still be a great scientist and medical doctor for sure. So I get encouraged when I meet people like that. They're not all gone, at least not yet. And whatever capacity that you're in, it doesn't matter if you're a high-profile professional or a student in a school or somebody working at physical labor, which I've done a lot of, and ditch digging or whatever, and agriculture, gardening, lab work, whatever it is you're involved in, or just taking care of a home, which is a vanishing skill and art and interest that needs to be brought back, I think, because somebody's supposed to be raising the kids and making a good atmosphere to do that in, not the government. And economically, everybody's being pushed into having government take over raising the children, and not a great plan. So just bringing integrity back into whatever it is that you do, and there's no job in the world that is not subject to being made super important if you put the right energy into it. And that's what I mean by an example of Dr. Cousens, not just for doctors, but for everybody, all of us included. So there's not too much I can add right at the moment to what he's already just finished saying. Listen to his archives if and when you get a chance on Lost Arts Radio, major platforms of all kinds, or through Blog Talk or lostartsradio.com. If you want to help us stay on the air and keep going in the midst of this very challenging environment, I would appreciate your help financially. Not if you're struggling to survive, of course. Just tell people about the show in that case. But if you've got financial resources that you can afford to help with, then that would be great. We've got a Subscribe Star channel that Doug set up, subscribestar.com/Lost Arts Radio. Money all goes to our nonprofit that is keeping all this together, or at least trying to. And we've got direct donate buttons on the two sites, lostartsradio.com and lostartsresearchinstitute.org. That goes directly to the nonprofit as well. If you're interested in working on yourself in a private, interactive, live environment, upgrading your life, transforming your quality of existence, learning about the real laws of healing and health and what's being hidden from us right now, that's what we do on that's what we talk about and share information like that in the private platform Planetary Healing Club. And you can access that via planetaryhealingclub.com. And if you have questions about that, you don't know if it's worth it for you to join or not, because there are small dues, really small, but they go in to help the nonprofit and all of our work as well. And if we were to somehow get lots and lots of people participating in the live interactive club, we could start building the school, which is one of our projects, and do the other things we have on hold because there's no money for them yet. And if you haven't noticed, we're trying to do all this with no commercials, no hyping products, at least not up to now. And we just depend on the people who think it might be worthwhile to help us at some scale. And if you've got large resources and want to talk about that to see if it's appropriate or not, you're welcome to email anytime, richard@lostartsradio.com, and I'll answer you. And the last time that came up recently, I told the person, no, it's not appropriate. You should put your money into this because it's more what you're interested in, not into what we're doing. It's going to be completely honest. We'll talk to you about the potential and whether it's a good idea. I do a few private sessions where we also get into information tailored to you that can't be put on the public platforms. And if you feel like that's something that you're a candidate for, then email me also, richard@lostartsradio.com, and I'll tell you if it makes sense or not. That also supports the nonprofit LostArtsResearchInstitute.org. Find out more about that by looking at that site. And the Eldamar tab is one possible configuration of the school, although there are others depending on how things work out. Stay in touch with our Sunday shows because Dr. Cousens and many other great guests and people on education, Joel Skousen and all kinds of people are guests on there. And it's a good show. It's free to the public. All the archives are available. If you get into Planetary Healing Club at planetaryhealingclub.com, you also get all the archives for that private meeting too, which you might find useful. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I was supposed to tell you that I forgot, but I think that's about it. Remember drcousens.com, drcousens, COUSENS.com to follow what he's doing. So in addition to the Sunday shows, which are going to be playing on more platforms, and Doug has just added some new audio-only platforms. So we were already on blogtalkradio.com, which is audio-only, and you can listen to that. The nice thing about Blog Talk is you can call in on a telephone, and if it's hands-free, you can listen while you're driving, and it's just kind of neat. He just added 2 new ones, which I didn't remember, which were Stitcher.com, STITCHER.com, and TuneIn.com, TUNEIN.com. So you'll hear us on audio there. Hopefully that'll offset places that we get disappeared from as time goes on, and we'll try to keep expanding the available platforms. And I think you can keep tuned into that or up to date on that at lostartsradio.com, where you can also get on the mailing list that we may need to start using if we get too hard to find in other places. So I think that's about it. Stay in touch with us, and if you have comments or questions, or you want to know more about Planetary Healing Club, whether it's worth your being in it, or you have suggested guests or anything like that, just anything you want to share with us, feel free to stay in touch. We'll read all of them at richard@lostartsradio.com. I think that's about it. So have a great night, or whatever part of the world and part of the time scale you're in right now. Really appreciate your staying with us, and take care of yourself. It's the best way you can help the rest of the world. Everything else comes from there. And we'll see you next time.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio on Subscribestar.com. Just go to subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio to find our rewards program, offering 10 different giving levels starting at just $5 a month. We offer incredible value for any rewards level, from extra monthly interview videos not available publicly to subscription-based Planetary Healing Club videos once, twice, or 3 times a month, to private counseling sessions with Lost Arts Radio host Richard Sachs, to tech help with me, Doug Diamond. We even have one option where you can be the star on Lost Arts Radio as our guest on a specially produced show just for you. We conduct an interview with you and broadcast it to our growing network and listenership. Our Subscribe Star levels are one of a kind and offer great rewards for any budget. Please help support Lost Arts Radio. We can't do it without you. With increasing censorship on many of our channels, we really need your support today to keep doing what we're doing. As Richard says, we're not even at survival level yet. Lost Arts Radio has 3 weekly shows. Lost Arts Radio Live each Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, which is a live stream currently on multiple platforms in case we get banned from some of the larger ones. Right now, we're on 2 YouTube channels, Facebook Live, Periscope, which is Twitter, Twitch, and DLive. You can access these broadcasts by going to www.lostartsradio.com/live for all the links to those channels. The Planetary Healing Club meets right after Lost Arts Radio Live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Saturday nights. And our Sunday show with guests airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday nights on our Blog Talk Radio channel, our YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and on Brighteon. Be sure to sign up for our free email list just in case we do get banned on big tech's platforms. It's just a matter of time, really. They don't like the stuff we talk about, and they do not want the truth out there. In fact, they have already attacked us numerous times. Join our free email list so we can let you know where we are and how to access our shows. The sign up button is right on the top right on most pages of our website. The best starting point for all things Lost Arts Radio is our main site, lostartsradio.com, where you can find the hottest news selection videos that we curate just for you. Those are on the homepage and added to daily, as well as articles and breaking news about information you really need to know. Our show archives, the 10 most recent shows, are right on our homepage, as well as our Blog Talk Radio page at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, or just click the All Things Radio Show tab right on our website. We're in the podcast directory on iTunes, and all of our shows except the banned ones are on our YouTube channels at Lost Arts Radio and at Diamond Disc. Our Brighteon page is really taking off, and we often have editors' picks videos right on their homepage. Visit brighteon.com/channel/lostartsradio. On our site, you can also access our free listener forum as well as sign up for the Planetary Healing Club, which is just $25 a month, where you get private access to a one-on-one interaction with host Richard Sachs and myself and the other club members who participate live. More info can be found at planetaryhealingclub.com. We're providing solutions in there to make the world a better place. Come join us. Stay tuned, because up next, you'll get to hear a really great song by an independent artist that we're doing our best to support. Go to lostartsradio.com/music for the full list of all the great songs and bands that we spin on our audio-only podcast shows. If you're in a band and want to submit a song for consideration for airplay on Lost Arts Radio, visit my website at diamonddiscaudio.com for more information about the music placement, mastering, and mixing work that I do. Thanks again for listening to and supporting Lost Arts Radio. We love having you as part of our family to learn, experience, and grow with.
Don't care what people say. All I wanna do is walk my way and get ready to be surprised. Things don't look too good these days. Humankind's chasing its own tail, but get ready to be surprised. I don't care about the past. Old memories turn to dust. Baby, get ready to be surprised. Don't care what people say. All I wanna do is live for today and get ready to be surprised. Now it's time to let it all go. Feel the love is all there is to know, and get ready to be surprised. I don't care about the past. Old memories turn to dust. Baby, get ready you do. You can join this tune, it's all about you. And get ready to be surprised.